2. Dharmodgata from Wanglong during the Lusong dynasty. Dharmodgata, or Feiyong, had the original surname Li and was a native of Wanglong, Yuzhou. He joined the monastic order as a novice in his boyhood and began his ascetic practice from that point. His teacher thought highly of him, especially in scripture recitation and precept observance. After Dharmodgata heard about Faxian and other masters' voyages to the origin of Buddhism, he made the vow to travel to the West. In the first year of the Yongchu period in the Lusong dynasty, he convened 25 monks with the same aspiration, including Senjming and Tanlang. Taking Buddhist instruments such as embroidered umbrellas, they headed westwards from China. Dharmodgata first arrived in Henan Principality. Then, departing from Haishi Prefecture, he entered the desert and arrived in Gaochang. Later on, he traveled across Kucha, Kasal, and other countries, climbed the Pamirs, and crossed the snowy mountains. Thousands of miasmas, ice of 10,000 miles, and large, deluging rivers obstructed their journey. They built a rope bridge between the east and west peaks, and 10 persons passed the river valley together each time. When they reached the other side, they signaled the rest of the group with a beacon. In the case that the successors did not see fire and smoke long after the previous batch departed, they would know that the predecessors had fallen in the river because the wind swayed the rope too much. Walking for 3 days, they had to cross another huge snowy mountain where the cliffs towered into the sky. No path existed on the cliffs, there were only holes in pairs, made by earlier travelers for wooden pegs. Each of them held 4 pegs and put them in the holes. They pulled out the pegs behind first and used their right hands to put the spare pegs in the next holes, holding the handles to move on their steps. After another 3 days, they arrived at a relatively flat place and realized that 12 members were missing. Upon their arrival in Jiban, they worshipped the stone bowl used by the Buddha. Dharmodgata then stayed there for a year to study Sanskrit. He also acquired the Guanxian Shoji Jing Sutra on Avalokiteshvara Vyakarana in Sanskrit. Later, they continued the journey westwards and arrived at the Indus River, which was called Lion's Mouth by Chinese people, entering the kingdom of Yuezhi. From the west of the river, they paid homage to the parietal relic of the Buddha and venerated the sacred wooden boat in person. Later on, they reached Shilyu Temple at the south of Mount Dantaloka, where over 300 monks of 3 Buddhist vehicles lived and practiced. Dharmodgata received full ordination in this temple. An Indian monk, named Photwodwola or Weiju, was said to have attained enlightenment. Thereupon, Dharmodgata respected and followed him as his teacher. Inviting Jiding, a Chinese monk, to be his acharya, he stayed at the temple for a summer retreat of 3 months. Continuing on, he later arrived in central India after passing through vast open country, where they could only rely on crystal sugar for food. 13 departed from the mountain, but only 5 survived this part of the journey and arrived at the destination. Although they encountered enormous dangers and hardship, Dharmodgata constantly recited the Guanxi Yin Jing on the way without a moment of pause. Approaching Sravasti, they came across wild elephants. He recited the name of Guanxian and prayed quietly. Then, lions came out from the forest, and the elephants ran away. When they crossed the Ganges, a herd of roaring buffaloes rushed towards them and would have hurt them. Dharmodgata prayed for salvation. Soon, a giant vulture hovered over and the buffaloes escaped. Again, Dharmodgata and his company were saved. Dharmodgata had experienced many critical moments as such. Since his devotion touched the deities and spirits, dangers were turned to safety. Dharmodgata later came to Guangzhou from southern India by ship. They recorded his adventures in a travelogue. The Guanxian Shoji Jing that he translated circulated in the capital city. No one knows his whereabouts afterwards.